Good morning, everybody.
Hi. Good morning.
I'm Dr. Warren Doctor. I'm the President and CEO of the East Tennessee Historical Society. And before we get started, I just want to thank you all for coming out. Remind you, if you're not a member, to join up. We do a lot of these fun events, and being a member means you get to know about them and come. And speaking of which, I sort of have a question for you. Who here, how did you find out about today? Did you find out about today through social media? If so, please raise your hand. Or through the press cards, you know, the print cards. Did anybody hear about it through word of mouth? Maybe? Yeah, Joan did. And before we get started, I'd just like to tell you about a couple of things we have coming up. We're really excited to have Antoine Fletcher joining us from the Great Smoky Mountain National Park. He'll be speaking on August 2nd at noon for our brown bag lecture, and he will be discussing the African American experiences of what it's like in the Smokies and the people that have lived there. So we're very excited about that. And then on August 30th, Marilyn Mascaro will come and talk about her book, When Rivers Flowed, about two people who grew up in Appalachia and eventually moved to Knoxville. And then, of course, we have coming up, I don't know if you know this, a fantastic event that we call History Hootenanny. That'll be all day Saturday, August 19th. It's free for everyone, and there'll be buses that go out to the historic homes, and it's going to be a whole lot of fun. So we're very, very excited about History Hootenanny. But our talk today, it's a tremendous pleasure for me to introduce Bill Schmidt, who's a good friend of mine, or has become a good friend of mine. We worked together on the World's Fair exhibition, and he very generously donated many things for our exhibition. And I'm not going to take up much of the time telling you about him, just that he's a very, very interesting person. He's here to discuss his book, From Southview to Gettysvue. And Bill Schmidt is an Olympian, an Olympic organizer, a sports marketing guru, I think that's very fair to say, and also now an author. So I'll turn over to Bill.
Well, good afternoon. I don't see any bagged lunches, Warren. Are you going to deliver those, or are they supposed to bring them, or what?
It's a BYOB thing.
Oh, I didn't know that. BYOB, I'm not familiar with that term unless it involves something in a bottle.
Bring your own bag.
Bring your own bag. There you go. Thanks for being here. I've done this at several locations, different times. I just got back from my hometown, Cannonsburg, which is it's about 6 miles from where I grew up and where I was born, actually. I grew up in Cannonsburg. But Southview is the coal camp where my dad immigrated with his family. Every time I go back, I do the usual, it's a Western Pennsylvania thing. Those of you familiar with that, you know, it's a coal mining community, steel mills, etc. Some of the mines are still in operation, but it gets down to a regiment. You're instilled with this. You got to go to the grave sites, put flowers, and then you got to go back. And I do it as a wake-up call for me. I go back to this coal camp, and there may be 50 people there now. And every now and then I get an urge to stop at that house, because we were born at home in the upstairs bedroom, and it was, Mrs. Schmidt, don't move, there's another one on the way. I'm a twin. My mother had no idea she was having twins. Outside of this house is 4 cars on blocks, a motorcycle that's pretty well stripped down, and I'm going, nah. And then I go down to turn around the street, and I turned around very quickly. There was a flag, a Confederate flag there, and a poster sign with the gun on it, and it said, no trespassing. I got out of there as quick as I could. That instinct to go ahead and knock on the door and meet who's living there now has passed. I promise you that. When writing this, someone said, well, why did you write a book? I had no intentions of writing a book, I promise you. And this was pre-COVID, by the way. Everyone has evidently written a lot during COVID. I unfortunately got sick during COVID and didn't write I had it for about a month, dropped 20 pounds, didn't leave my house, lived out of the pantry. It was just me and my dog, Sam. And I wasn't able to write for another 2 months. Those of you that had it, you're familiar with the brain fog that comes along with it. And I sat down to write, and I'm going, da-da-da. I could barely put my name down, let alone a thought process. So over a period of years, and some of you might be familiar with my career, 3 or 4 of you here today are, 5 or 6, etc. After doing having a literally blessed life and having some incredible opportunities and making the best of them, someone said, Schmidt, you need to write a book. And I'm going, yeah, right. So for 20 years, I put that aside. Now, I'll give you some stats here. I found this out. 80% of the population would like to write a book. Anybody here want to write a book? I encourage you to do it. Yeah, there you go. And you should. And shown you should. Well, you've already have, yeah. So anyway, but 2% or less than 2% actually do it. Now, I wasn't trying to beat the statistics. In fact, I fought those stats most of my life in a variety of ways. But in searching out what I thought would be a ghostwriter, I met with several and they said, Bill, no one's going to be able to tell your story like you can. And I'm going, okay. So I had a variety of things. I was going to dictate it. I was going to transcribe it, everything else. Ended up sitting down and just started going. I didn't have an outline. I'd never written anything in my life. In fact, I'm sure that my English professors in college would be shocked. And they'll see this next month. It'll be in a University of North Texas publication, alumni. They sent a photographer in to do a photo shoot. I hadn't been on a photo shoot since Michael Jordan. I thought Michael was going to show up. This guy was so good. My hope is that he makes me look good. But you got to work with what you've got. But anyway, as I looked at this, I had several people that called during this process. One was Terry Lefton, who's an individual who's vice president at Sports Business Journal. And he calls occasionally to just check on the history of Gatorade. I was there long enough when it started, from an $80 million brand to $2 billion when I left. And he just calls to check on the stats. He goes, listen, the folks at Gatorade say that they were the first NFL sponsor. Well, that wasn't quite true, so he runs it by me. And then he goes, what are you doing? I said, I'm working on a project. He goes, what are you doing, writing a book? I said, as a matter of fact, I am. He goes, nobody will believe it. So I put that on a notepad. That was on my desk. And there's just me and the dog. And he's a credible dog, by the way. I have a twin brother, and I have a sister who lives back in Pennsylvania. I lost two older brothers, 86 and 85, within the last 3 years, not COVID related. But as I looked at it, I'm going, if I don't tell my story, nobody will. So those are the two notes that I looked at every day that kind of drove me to say, you got to finish this. And somewhere in between there, I said, well, I'm going to go ahead and divide it into 3 parts. Basically, early life, my competitive career, and my business or professional career. Some people in my life were there in various stages, and the response back from them was, I didn't know that about you. I didn't know that about you. Why didn't you say something? I was very quiet and very personal about my life, personally, my personal life as well as the business, and just focused on the moment and worked through it. So from a standpoint of this book is offered at Amazon.com. I have several copies here today. Any and all sales today will be donated to the East Tennessee Historical Society, so help them out. You don't write a book to make money unless Jones is off the chart. You still making money on yours? Oh, good. I won't. No, it's it's not the reason why I wrote it. If you inspire one person and motivate one person, that if I was successful where I came from, with my background, anybody can do it with the desire, determination, and, oh, by the way, the discipline. Now, that's a lot in 3 words. You can say that to a lot of people, but they have to embrace it and move from there. So when I looked at a cover, I designed it as well. And I looked for a variety of photos, etc. And those of you that know, you can't use the Olympic rings. You got to get approval. I'm not going to go through that process. You can't get Gatorade unless you put their logo on it and get approval. The other brands I've worked on, Under Armour, Levi Strauss, etc., I'm going, I can't put all those logos on. So I'm walking down the hall upstairs and I look, well, wait a minute, there's that oil painting right there. Duh. So a lot of this has been serendipitous. So I said, well, that'll work. And it turned out great. My brother's neighbor painted this about 40 years ago. And I met with several people that wrote books, and I'm going, I've never done this before. One person said, make sure you make your name big. No. I have a vision that I was going to see this at all the airports. And that's what it's going to look like, and that's what it's going to look like in the bookstores, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I wasn't naive enough to believe that anybody, or anybody for that matter, would ever recognize who I was. But the process, Southview to Gettysvue, just kind of flowed. Southview was the coal camp. I live in Gettysvue. And I'm going, well, they're not going to understand that. So I put a little subtitle under it, from a coal camp to Olympic podium to courtside with Michael Jordan. Even if they don't know who Bill Schmidt is, they know who Michael Jordan is, if they're alive and have a pulse. Underneath that, someone, as I said, someone said, make your name big. I'm going, they're not going to remember who I am or recognize who I am. So I thought, well, I'll put something under there. Olympian, Olympic organizer, sports marketing guru. Now, when I was typing that, I had, because we got, Joan Cronin and I were fortunate enough, we both received an innovator and pioneer in sports business in California. What's it been, like 8 years now? So I was going to put sports innovator, and I got to type that out, and innovator wouldn't fit on the line. And it was their words. Somewhere someone said, Schmidt's a sports guru. And I'm going, well, that'll work. I'll put that in there. So a lot of this is on the flow, on the go, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm finding more and more out of it. I've read the book 8 times. I recommend it, by the way. I'm now going through the audio book, which is tedious. You have to listen to every word after picking a person. So now I literally have to go through, and you don't write this down. They have what they call a cheat sheet. And you literally look at the frame, the time stamp, and you make the corrections in 2 different columns. As I said, very tedious. So it'll be about 9 times now after I go through with it. So with that, Newman Springs was the publisher. I searched this out. If anybody wants to have any shared information, talk to me or talk to Joan or anybody else who's written a book. It's something else. But I'm proud of the book. I'm proud of the story. It revealed a lot about me that most people didn't know, and it's, as I said, has gotten good reviews. Now, my dad, as a 12-year-old, came to the United States. He was born in Germany in the Bavarian Alps, and at this point in time, from the 1880s, I believe, to the 1920s, there was a large immigration from Germany and the Slavic countries, Slovakia and also Czechoslovakia, which, as it was listed. Those are all broken out now into Czech Republic, Slovenia, Slovakia. We go to a family reunion, you see the Czech flag over there, you see the Slovenian flag over there, and the Slovakian over here, and they're still fighting. I mean, it is what it is. But this was the ship he came over. Incredible. And they started with the idea that this would be kind of the beginning of the era of ocean liner travel, etc. Well, at some point they decided that was a kind of a smaller audience. Then they just opened up the bowels of this and just literally charged anybody and everybody a flat fee, anywhere from $800 to $1,000, $1,500, just crammed into this ship. So he came into Ellis Island, and I have no memory whatsoever of my dad. There were 7 of us in the family. My dad was a coal miner, as I said, and he ended up committing suicide. We were about 2 years old, my twin brother and I. So we never knew it. And he was a mean guy, and talking to my older brothers, he was not stereotypical Appalachian coal miners, but they go to work, come back, food's on the table, beat the wife, beat the kids, get drunk, from what they've told me. So, but this is the name of the ship, and its history is quite amazing. Now, this is Southview as the coal mine, a Montour mine number 1, and as I look at this, 2 buildings are missing, otherwise it looks the same. Outhouses in the back. Literally the company built the coal mine, the coal mine company built the housing. There was a company store. They paid you in company script. I remember as a kid going to that company store getting groceries, or actually you couldn't get some things there, main staples, but I remember my mom signing a book, and it was just a promise to pay. That's all it was. I never saw money at my house at all. So, I didn't realize till later in life. But up in that far left-hand corner up there, that 3rd house on the left from the top, that's it. It looks nothing like that. In fact, it looks better there than it does now. But 2-sided. My uncles lived on the other side of this big, what's called a union. It wasn't a union hall then, but it was where the coal miners met before they went into the mines. The company store was on the other side. One aunt lived there, an uncle lived up the street, my grandmother lived down the street, so the Schmidts were in town, so to speak. And then they migrated and moved around and went from there. But not the quite, and again, you had two options, and not that they were bad. You could work in the coal mines, which my twin brother did for over 20 years, while he was working on his PhD at West Virginia in mining safety. And it was, you could either coal mines or steel mills. The steel mills are no longer there. I spoke with somebody a while back when the Canadian smoke came into Pittsburgh. As a kid growing up, that's what it looked like because of the steel mills. The coal and the stacks that were there just made it, you couldn't see the city. It was that dark with, dust and coal, soot rather. And it was a far cry from where we started. This picture on the right is, that would be Bob on the right, brother Ed in the middle, and me on the left. And Ed lied about his age. My mother had to sign for him. He enlisted in the Army. I lost him about 2.5 years ago. But they all quit school to go to work. None of them graduated from high school. My mom had a 6th grade education, formally. She immigrated as well with her family. And they lived in a town called Moon Run, McKees Rocks area. And back then there were no labor laws, etc. So at the age of 9, she started working in a textile mill. She met my dad at a Slovenian club, of all places. At 18, she got married. At 19, she had her first child, had 6 more. On the left, that's Ed at a younger age, and that would be Bob on the right, me on the left, my brother Mike down on the left side, and my sister Mary. That's Appalachia, folks. Been there, lived it, can relate to it, trust me. But it gives you a great appreciation of what you can do, and where where your life can change given the opportunity. And there was nobody in the house but my mom, my sister, and my brother and I, and that was basically it. She moved us 6 miles away to a town called Canonsburg, small suburb of Pittsburgh, about 10,000 people. I was back there this past weekend. They dedicated a plaque in honor of the 100th year anniversary of the town park. Now in these small towns, town parks mean everything. So it was great to be back there. In the past 5 years, I built a pickleball court. My brother and I ended up putting in an exercise cluster of, where you can go ahead and do a variety of things on a fit trail, 14 of those. So we've given back to the community without any question because it literally was childcare for my mom. She'd go to the affluent area about 15, 20 miles away near Pittsburgh called Mount Lebanon, and she'd clean houses anywhere from $8 to $10 a day. She'd give us $1 each, and we spent the day there. We couldn't get in trouble. I don't remember ever being in trouble. Otherwise, you'd have the fury of Helen P., my mom, and nobody wanted that. But everybody in town knew her. She didn't drive. She walked everywhere. We'd go down on Saturdays twice a month to go ahead and get some of the surplus food that they were giving out, and that's how we lived. And that's Bob and I at the town park on the left. I don't know how she did it. Incredible lady. I dedicated the book to her, by the way. She had us. We never lacked for food, never lacked for clothes. Like I said, didn't see a dime, didn't recognize money if I ever saw it. But she dressed us alike. In every one of our photos, we were in ties. And I've noticed that more and more over the years. And this is probably the photo that we look the most identical. Want to take bets on where I am? Which one am I? Any guesses?
Right.
Right is it. I'm on the right, and Bob's on the left. My brother ended up marrying an identical twin. At the wedding, we looked like bookends. It was sad. I didn't do well. I graduated, not the upper half of my class, let's put it that way. Didn't have a lot of materials to read at home, no books to speak, no books at all, no newspapers. Started to compete, sports was away, I wasn't that big. I was about 5'10", 170 pounds. Had a growth spurt freshman year of college, 6 foot 191. Didn't make it to the state meet, won the districts, I was a 185 foot javelin thrower, which you're not going to get anything from anybody. And then I went to a track meet. It was the Big Four meet at West Virginia. And it was Villanova, Penn State, West Virginia, Villanova, am I leaving out? Oh, Pitt. So all four of these schools had pretty good track programs. It was the first time I ever saw anybody, and Penn State had 3 great javelin throwers. First time I'd ever seen a javelin thrown over 240 feet. And I'm going, wow, and this guy was from Sweden. He ended up being a decathlete and made 3 Olympic teams. And the coach from Penn State, my high school coach, introduced me to him, and he said, well, how far are you throwing? I said, I'm throwing 185. He goes, you know, guys from the eastern part of the state are throwing over 200. And I go, you know, I'm going to be throwing over 200. So next week I threw over 200 feet. So it's a mindset, discipline, put a goal out there. Never had a coach, even when in high school or college, or for that matter, my 10-year career after I graduated from college. So all this was, you know, I remember the day in high school I walked off the world record. It was 280 feet. And I'm going, how in the world does somebody throw that far? I should have walked off 300 feet now that in retrospect. I threw 283 feet, 2 inches. So, and I was over 280 feet a number of times. But for a guy that, I went into the trades, literally I started doing anything from body work, woodworking. The individual gave me a chance to work and build horse trailers. And this guy sold them all over the United States. And I learned a great work ethic from him. He was the first male person influence in my life, without any question. So you learn how to do the job, do it right, think about the next person, a variety of other things. So my high school track coach didn't coach me in the javelin. He was more focused on getting me to college than I was. So he came, he said, there's this school in Denton, Texas called North Texas State University. I never heard of it. Well, they've offered to go ahead and accept you as a walk-on. Now, with the last semester having attended, taking a bus every day to attend a junior college in Pittsburgh called Point Park College, I had 3 Fs, 2 Ds. I don't know how I got the 2 Ds. I really don't. I was in the pool hall across the street most of the time. So it wasn't a good foundation for success, to say the least. So all I wanted was a chance, and they said, well, you have to pay your own way. And I said, done deal. In fact, it was cheaper for me to go to school in Texas than it was to go to school in Pennsylvania, from a tuition standpoint, not room and board, etc. So when they started looking at the process of selecting a U.S. team, U.S. Olympic team, my college career, I eventually got a full scholarship my last year. I threw 219.2 as a sophomore. Freshmen weren't eligible. The next year I threw 253.1. You don't make those kind of gains. You make 10-foot games, maybe 5. My senior year I opened the season at 272. I improved another 20 feet. The coach threatened to take the javelin away from me. I was competing against someone you know quite well here, he may rest in peace, Bill Skinner. I finished second to Bill Skinner at 2 national championship meets. I visited and competed in the nationals here in Knoxville in 1969. It's a bit ironic that full circle, I'm back here, and I've been here for 20 years. And everyone always said, oh, you're that javelin thrower, Bill's from Tennessee. I said, no, that's Bill Skinner. Now, he was 29 at the time, and I was 21. And everyone would ask, well, don't you think it's not fair that he's older than you? He's a competitor, that's all I saw. Until I got to be 28 competing against collegiates. All the difference in the world. Bill was picked to make the Olympic team. I wasn't. On a 280-foot throw in Modesto, California, I heard something pop. And again, this was the all-time big meet. It was covered by ABC Wide World of Sports. Had the best in the U.S. in college, as well as those vying for the Olympic team. Now, the meet record for that event was set the year before by the current world record holder, Jorma Kinnunen from Finland. Finland is kind of the mecca of javelin throwing. Although javelin now in Germany is doing pretty well, but now they're coming from all over the place. India, of all places, who's a great thrower. Chopka won the Olympic gold in Tokyo, and literally there's an individual from the Dominican who's throwing well. So it's not centered in that area. And again, YouTube has helped a lot for those individuals who don't have coaches in countries that surprisingly don't throw the javelin. They normally get into another event before that. Terry Hanratty actually had the high school javelin record when he was in Louisiana, 252. And then Mark Muro broke that at 253. So this meet had everybody in it. It was invitation only. There was only 6 competitors. You got all 6 throws. I take the lead early on. And if you throw over 260, which is 80 meters, you're considered world class, right? So I'm leading the competition, and at the end of 3 rounds, I'm still in the lead. And I'm thinking to myself, pretty good test. See how you do today in this world-class competition. So we get down to the last throw. I'm still leading. They do it in reverse order. So I'm thinking, this is a morbid thought as I think about it. Well, there's 6 of us. This guy just threw. If he beats me, the worst I can get is second. This guy beats me, the 5th place guy, the worst I can get is 5th, etc. Everybody else beats me. There's only 2 guys left. He doesn't beat me. And then the 2nd place guy is Mark Muro, Olympian from 1968, American record holder at 300 feet. And he comes down the runway, grass, not artificial, throws. And I'm about, like I said, I'm wearing a line out at 260, 267, 266, very consistent. So he comes down and he throws 270, 271, 4 inches. He doesn't break the meet record, but he takes the lead. I'm going, Schmidt, you did pretty good today. I'm walking back in the lane and I'm going, yeah, you got 2nd place. No one ever thought that. You're from an obscure school in Texas. No one's ever heard of you. I get to the back of the lane and you collect your thoughts and I'm going, you dumb. He's only 3 feet in front of you. I came down the runway I threw 280 feet, 7 inches. Interviewed on ABC Wide World of Sports. My dad's brother, his last living brother and his wife, I invited into the meet, not knowing what to expect. Hadn't seen them in 30 years, their son and daughter. So they saw all this unfold and didn't know what to make of it. So with that, I spent a couple years in the service. I got drafted. I wasn't picked to make the Olympic team. I had the 30th longest throw in the world in 1971, a year before the Olympics. I was picked and ranked about 10th in the U.S. So the odds on Bill Schmidt making the Olympic team was out there to debate. I didn't have to debate it. That was my goal from the time I was a kid in the backyard working on jumping over a rope or throwing a bowling ball or whatever. And that day I won the trials. I won the trials on my last throw. I've done that quite a bit. So the pressure I love. I loved it at that time, and I loved it when I was in business as well. On the right is from Munich, 2 photos from Munich, and there's a story that I tell that it's also in the book that on the day of qualifying, I went down to the bowels of the Olympic Village, assuming there was going to be transportation there. I couldn't find transportation to the venue. I could see the landmark for the stadium. It's a 300-meter tall steeple thing. And I said, well, it normally take an hour to warm up. I thought, well, I could go outside the perimeter and get a cab. And, well, that doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to get there. So it was about 3.5, 4 miles away. I started running. A panic had set in. What am I going to do? And I didn't tell this story to my brother till about 5, 7, 8 years ago. He had never heard it. But every Olympian has a story. So if you get the opportunity to talk to any one of them or any of them, they all have a story that's maybe not as widely known as the facial focus of Spitz, Phelps, etc. But they all have stories. So I'm running there, and I was running 4 miles a day in the morning, so it wasn't like it was, but my thought was, I better get over there. Meanwhile, if some of you remember, the day before, 2 U.S. sprinters missed their race. And they got disqualified because of a time error. The international time read 1400 and the coach misread it. So they're there at ABC watching what they think is previous footage from the day before, and it turns out that's their race. ABC put them in one of their vehicles, ran them down there, and they didn't make the qualifying. Now, I didn't have the name and recognition of those guys. They were favorites. They were medal favorites. But I'm thinking, I don't make it. It's just a a footnote. Schmidt didn't make it, as opposed to these guys were front and center on the whole 9 yards. I get to the area that's the practice area. There's 2 Germans there in uniform, guards, and I go, javelin, and then I spewed out Speerwurfer, which is German for javelin thrower. And he looked at the chief, you're too late, you can't come in. I'm going, what? My whole life passed in front of me, all this hard training. I wasn't picked I went from possibly making the Olympic team to making the Olympic team to might make the top 8, which no one in the United States has made the top 8 in 20 years before I did, and before 2 of us did, actually. So at that moment, like I said, it was just adrenaline. I knocked the 2 guards down, ran. I get to the area where they're doing the warm-ups, and they've already warmed up. It's in 2 groups, 26 individuals in each group. And those of you that competed can relate to this. You never looked your competition in the eye if you're on that competitive day. You're focused, you don't pay any attention. Everybody's kind of keeping their eyes down. We were in this little holding area for like 5 minutes because that's all I had. I didn't have a chance to throw to warm up. And I'm looking around, nobody's looking up. They're all looking down. I'm going, this is going to be a tough day. So I get out there, and I don't know, my coach didn't prepare me for what the protocol was or is. And there's a box about the size of half this section of the table, and I'm going, everybody's running over to that, and I couldn't figure out why. I get over there. Oh, they have markers there. And when you throw the javelin, you start from a certain distance from the foul line. I started at 102 feet 1 inch. To be saying I'm anal, it's a little bit understated. Trust me, it's the Germans as well. So, and then there's a mark at 41 feet 6.5 inches, where after you do your run-up, you get to that point and you start taking it back into crossovers and you throw. Well, the colors of those markers are designated so you can see it out of your peripheral vision. You're not going to look at it, you're just going to pick it up. So as I get to the box, there's 1 set of markers left. They match the color of the track. Not a good sign. Not a good day. Everything's going on. As I'm walking through the stadium and whatnot, like I say, 90,000 people. The javelin is the only competition going on. And I hear Schmidt. And of course, we're in Germany. As I say, it could have been the beer vendor that they were calling for, as far as I know. So I get down there and I put those marks down, and I come up, and my teammate, Fred Luke from the University of Washington, was in the same Group A that I was in. He's 6'4". He came down, he had to throw 80 meters, 262, 5.5. And you're throwing at 9 o'clock in the morning, which is not ideal. But I practiced that because the only bit of advice that Mark Muro, the gentleman that I beat on that last throw, gave me was, hey, you're going to throw early, practice it. It's difficult. Now there's a guy that finished 12th and could have done better, and he was picked to make the Olympic team before I was. So I said, absolutely. And so I practiced for that. And as I came down the runway, before I start, when they announce your name, there's a clock over the side. You have 90 seconds to complete the throw. If you don't complete the throw, it's a foul. That counts as 1 throw. You only get 3 throws to throw 80 meters. Everybody that throws over 80 meters goes on to the next day. Those marks don't count. So on Fred Luke's first throw, he throws 81 meters, 266, 7.5 inches. He's qualified. Meanwhile, I come down, I stutter step, and I throw 247. I'm a far cry from where I need to be to get to the next day. And I'm still, like I said, not focused at all. And I said, Fred, I need stand right where that first marker is, where I just start into my crossovers. I won't miss him, he's 6'4", right? So as he stands over there, I'm in the back, the clock's running, and I'm contemplating, thinking, and focusing. And all of a sudden, the official says, all those who have qualified, move over here. You're leaving the stadium. And there goes my 6'4" marker going away with it. Not a good day. I come down and I throw 248. I'm going, this is not good. And then for my last throw, I thought, well, I'll put my jacket. I took my jacket off. I put it over where the line is. The clock's running. I get to the back of the lane. And again, I'm getting my mind set. And all of a sudden, the official comes over and he drags my jacket away. Not a good day. I come down. I stutter step again, but I throw 258, 10.5 inches. Not 262. I had not qualified. So I'm thinking, well, there's always 4 years, and I'm going, wait a minute, there's another group. I went through the bottom of the stadium, came up, and look as if you're looking down a tunnel at Neyland, right? And I'm looking at the competition, and I'm looking at the next 20 guys. Let's see, there's the world record holder, there's the European champion, there's so-and-so from East, and it was East and West Germany. And to say that the East Germans had a different diet is an understatement, trust me. If you don't get the gist of that, PEDs were prevalent in East Germany, in performance-enhancing drugs. So there were 3 of those guys, a couple of guys, the gold medalists from Mexico City, the world record holder, et cetera. And I'm going, yeah, and I'm in 5th, 7th place. This doesn't look good. And about that time I'm standing there, there's a gentleman pushing a wheelchair. A guy that could barely walk himself is pushing somebody else that can't walk. And it was like reality slapped me in the face and said, Schmidt, you're worried about how you did in this silly sport, and these guys can't walk. So I left. I went back to the Olympic Village. My teammate came back, and I said, how'd I do? Now, if they don't have 12 individuals that go over 80 meters, they supplement that until they do. He said, you got 10th. So great. So I got to throw the next day. Next day I was the first one out there, but that night I met with the other 2 javelin throwers, and I said, you know what, there's 2 guys that are extremely, they separated from us quite a bit, that are going to probably be the talent to beat. But there's an opportunity for one of us to get bronze. Of course, I'm thinking it's me, but I'm the team guy, so I'm going to go ahead. So anyway, sure enough, the next day I was out there on time. I was the first guy in the box. My second throw was 276.11, just shy of 280. Had another one over that. The Germans was in second. Lucis, the Russian, was in first. And this is the first Olympics where they used some technology where literally you can go ahead and put the marker in the ground and you need a tape. They do it quite common today. So 90,000 people when the German got up to throw, West German, Klaus Wurfermann, 90,000 people, and he got back of the lane. And oh, by the way, they extended the lane to accommodate his distance. So you had the lane, then you had 9 lanes of track, then you had another 5 feet on the other side of the track. It just kind of worked, that was his distance. Anyway, 90,000 people are going, Wurfermann, Wurfermann. I mean, it's like literally, he came down the runway fast, threw it. You could hear a pin drop when they let go of it. And you're throwing about the distance of a football field. Literally you're throwing, almost 300 feet, goal line to goal line. And they measured it up there, and his was 90 meters, 48 centimeters, which was 297. And he had taken the lead over Lucis. Lucis came down on his next throw. He stopped, went back, the clock's still running. 4 years earlier, he did the same thing in Mexico and won the gold on his last throw. He comes down, he lets go of it. No cascading of his name anywhere, but he comes down and throws. And it seemed like it took an eternity for them to post the distance up there. Remember, 90, 48, his was 90, 46. You're throwing almost 300 feet, and you lose by that much. Less than half an inch. The gentleman that finished in third was gentleman that finished in fourth was one of the favorite. He was a Finn, which, pretty prevalent in the javelin circles, and they've won more Olympic medals than anybody. So it was a special time. And then a teammate of mine, Fred Luke, finished 8th, so it was the first time the U.S. had 2 people in the qualifying to get 3 more throws on the second day. And it was the best results we had. We had a 3rd, we had an 8th, and a 10th. No one has done that well since. No one's been in the top 10 since. So it was special for us, and it was special for all of us. And there you have the gold medal winner in the middle, Klaus Wurfermann, Janis Lucis, and then myself. And everyone said, God, Lucis looks a little dejected. He's got a complete set. I'm not going to worry about him. He passed away this past year. But quite a competition. I've known these guys. I said Lucis passed away, but Wurfermann, I went over to Oktoberfest, located him. We went to a beer, if you've ever been over there, if you haven't, go. These beer halls are the size of 100 yards long, and they've got like 60 of them or 100. He comes walking in, he's still like a rock star. He looks a lot like David Mink right here, if you notice this resemblance. Handsome guy. But he was still a rock star. He was dressed in lederhosen, and it was just great memories. So, and then on the left, I competed for Knoxville Track Club. Well, that would be your right, though. No, my left. And I competed for Knoxville Track Club, and I won the national championships in 1978 on my last throw. And then that's a picture of me on my best throw ever, which was 283, which I won. I started to press after the first throw, which was the cardinal sin. Just relax and let it happen. So hindsight's 2020. That's why I have back problems, Dick. Back problems, hip replaced, shoulders that are worn out. It's not natural to get in either one of those positions, folks. And the flexibility is gone. I do go to Stretch Fusion. It helps quite a bit. I got my start here in sports marketing in Knoxville at the World's Fair. Literally, everyone said, World's Fair in Knoxville? Really? But as 40 years have gone by, and looking at it, and looking through the memorabilia that I gave to the history, East Tennessee Historical Society, it was incredible what they pulled off. And people don't realize it. The history, the number of countries, the attendance, unbelievable. And then my introduction to Gatorade was literally Bill Stokely, local, farm out in Newport, and they started what was going to be called the Gatorade Sports Hall of Fame. And it was my responsibility, because it had sports in it. We're going to give it to Schmidt. We had no budget, so it was literally try to get these events to pay for themselves. Tom Seiler, which some of you know, was a sports writer. He had some of the big events already in the progress. Steelers versus the Patriots at Neyland, Celtics versus the Sixers in the NBA. We had the Soviet Union versus the U.S. in swimming and diving. We had the U.S. track and field championships here. We had 21 events in 26 weeks. I did a poster, and I still go back and look at. Pretty incredible. And again, without a budget, the football game kind of paid for it. And working with Bob Woodruff, who I learned a lot from, he goes, after we invited the owner, Sullivan, who was the owner of the Patriots at the time, and the Rooney family, Art Rooney Jr. came in, and he paid the guarantee up front. So he paid $150,000 to each team. And then he bumps me and goes, and I'm sorry if you've never heard Bob Woodruff's, well, I paid my part, now it's up to you. So I've got to write a check for $150,000 and I don't have any money. Meanwhile, Tom Seiler's already put me in debt over $400,000 just on the guarantees he promised, who I love. We made a great pair together. So I sold 20,000 of those game tickets to the people in Pittsburgh coming here to see the game. And oh, by the way, the fair's here, they went to that as well. So quite an experience. And this is back when there was no designation as sports marketing anywhere. And that's the Hall of Fame that they did, big NASCAR country. So that was Bertha. Waltrip drove that for 17 wins and victories in 1 year. And I had Heisman trophies there. I had all the championship rings, Babe Ruth's Foot Locker, 10 modules. And Bill Stokely and Stokely Van Camp put this all together. Phenomenal. I had Olympic medals there. I had Ralph Boston, who just passed away, his gold, silver, and bronze medals, Jesse Owens' uniform, a litany of other things that I thought, well, what people want to see that they couldn't. And so it was, and then the part of returning it was something as well from a logistical standpoint. But quite an event. After that, I was going to go work for Bill Stokely. I said, well, I got to interview with somebody. So I talked to them. Yeah, come on up for an interview. And they offered me an opportunity, and everyone thought, well, you know Bill Stokely, that's why you got the job. You graduated from the University of Tennessee. His name's on 4 or 5 buildings at the University of Tennessee. But I've never met Bill Stokely once in my life, and it was at the fair. So they had just acquired Gatorade, and there was only two flavors, lemon lime, the original, and orange. And they just started to come up with fruit punch. Fruit punch had red dye number 9. So if you drank it or got some on your uniform, it turned it black. If you got it on an artificial surface, like tartan surface, whatever, it turned that black. They eventually had to get away from it, went up. In the interim, I got offered the opportunity to go to LA. I returned John Neighbor's medals, his Olympic medals they let me borrow for the exhibit. And I thought, I'm going to drive these out there, double team. I'll go over to LA, do an interview. Nobody was there. I came back. I started working in Indianapolis. Loved it. About 8 weeks later, they called and said, we'd like to hire you. We're not sure where we're gonna put you. And I said, never mind. 2 weeks later, they called back and said, we want you to be one of the vice presidents of sports, and we're not sure no, I'm good right here in Indianapolis. I've got a great opportunity. This is a career. Called me back about 3 days later. We're gonna give you track and field and boxing as 2 of the sports. I just got goosebumps when I said that. Track and field, I gotta go. Where do I sign? So I left with a leave of absence. In the interim, I talked to the president of Stokely, and he goes, Stokely Van Camp, and he goes, I understand you're going to the Olympics. I said, well, I don't really want to go. He goes, well, then don't. I gotta go. But I'll leave on good terms, leave of absence, blah, blah, blah. Was out there, I ended up with 8 sports, 61 training sites, and all the equipment for 23 sports. It was a labor of love, and it was 18-hour days, but, you know, you didn't care. Plus, there were 5 other individuals who were there from the World's Fair in Knoxville. And while I was there, Gatorade, I like this logo, by the way. I don't know whether you like the G or not. I have too much sweat equity, but I do have opinion. I like this one better. Anyway, they came out there when Quaker Oats acquired it, came out and interviewed me, and they said, we want you to come back. I said, my intentions were to always come back. As I said, the sales were 88 million. The Olympic Games, we had a, and you probably don't remember this. The U.S. was one of 2 bidders to get the Olympics in '84. The other one was, you're not going to believe this, Tehran, Iran. They pulled out of it because of civil disruption, right? So it came to the U.S. The U.S. Olympic Committee said, we've got 2 cities, New York or L.A. They gave it to L.A. Nobody wanted to sign the contract to be held responsible for any debt or whatever. Private individuals took that on in Southern California by themselves. No reimbursement, everything else. They did strike a deal that if there was a profit, now the IOC said, well, no one's ever made a profit in the Olympics. We'll sign this. 40% will stay in LA, 20% goes here. Anyway, it funded the sports programs in Southern California. We turned a profit of $225 million. Unheard of in Olympic. You don't see it anymore. We did a lot of the, and as I went back, I kind of met a few people, worked with some other people. I met Michael before we ever signed him in '88 at the slam dunk competition. I renamed it Gatorade Slam Dunk. Dale Earnhardt was a great friend, and the book is about a variety of stories, etc. This is in New York. We brought together all the 5 trophies of the major sports and 5 icons in that sport. You know, football, we had Walter Payton. Basketball, we had Jabbar. NASCAR, we had Bobby Allison. We had Jackson in baseball. And hockey, we had Gordie Howe. So these were all there. And we bought the complimentary trophies, had jackets for them and everything else. And this was in Grant Park. It was one of my better days right there, now I say it. And we had, you know, ESPN being the MC, and had a great crowd. And as we left I ended up buying a fleet of Hummers. I took a page out of Nike. In the worlds of marketing, the idea is there's only 7 ideas out there, and everybody modifies it, one of those. Well, I saw Nike, if you remember, they had those Hummers, they were all black and had the white swoosh. I'm going, that looks pretty good. Now, with that Gatorade logo, we had more color, so it looked like they went through a paint shop. Any number of colors, but the Gatorade logo was right there. I went ahead and bought 12 of them. We turned them over to our sales force, but we had one in New York for that episode, for this event. I walked to my friend and I said, where's our Hummer? He said, Walter Payton wanted to drive it. I said, what do you do? He gave him the keys. Downtown Manhattan, Walter Payton's driving this Hummer around, and sooner or later he shows back up and we get the vehicle back. But it was a great event. Got to be close friends with Michael. This was when we signed him. The story is in the book about how we got him away. I stole him from Coke. I still have an ad that shows Michael in a Coke ad. You can't remember the Coke ad. They did one, it was terrible. But they had a stable of athletes. My thought and strategy was, he's going to be our only athlete. We're going to build a campaign just around him. Now, what's it going to cost? We were at a meeting in Lake Como, and they said, you have one athlete to sign. Who would it be? Well, Michael Jordan. At the time, it wasn't as obvious as it is looking back. because he hadn't played the year before. They won the world championships, etc. But he had, lost 20 games because of his ankle injury. It was the shoes, so to speak. And it came back, and I thought it was going to, I knew what Coke was paying him. They were paying him $300,000. Got close with the agent in a previous proposal to Michael. One of the brands within Quaker Oats wanted to use Michael, but they were more, they wanted to go ahead and use Michael as what they call a walk-in. In other words, they had somebody there that was going to be portraying Michael's mom. And the product was choosy moms like this, and so did their kids. So while this mom's looking at her product, here comes Michael just walking through, nods, and leaves. The product was Beanie Weenies. When I pitched this to Michael, I can't repeat what he said. So based on that relationship, I thought, well, we can do it again. I called the agent, David Falk, when I was in Lake Como. And I said, David, I'm at this meeting, blah, blah, blah. I think it's time we revisit the opportunity of having Michael be the spokesperson for Gatorade. He said, I think that's great. I said, I don't expect you to tell me anything about the Coke contract. I said, I kind of know where they are, where they're paying him. Is there anything else you can tell me? He goes, yeah. Coke doesn't have a right of first refusal on Michael Jordan. Now, for those of you who don't know it, when you have a contract and someone else decides they want it, you can go ahead and bid. Well, the owner of that contract currently has the opportunity to go back and match that deal. And when I heard that, I'm going, I've died and gone to heaven. So you're saying there's a chance. So with that in mind, I go back to the meeting and I said, Bill, what do you think? I said, I think we can sign him. And then the strategy laid out, and I said, well, how much do you think it's going to be? Now, remember, they're paying him $300,000. I said, it's going to be $1 million. I said that number, and I held with it for the longest time. And in the meeting with the agent, I said, we met at the All-Star game, and I invited him out to dinner, one of my favorite Italian restaurants. I knew what David's favorite wine was. I called ahead, make sure it was still in stock. So he set the detail. Attention to detail matters. So I get to dinner and we start talking after the niceties and whatnot. And I said, we probably need to kind of talk about what's going to take to get Michael to be the spokesperson for Gatorade. He goes, well, meanwhile, in all my contracts, I had 3 to 5 year deals. I like 5-year deals because as time goes by, there's going to be more expensive to renew, et cetera, et cetera. But I also never let a contract expire. So if it was in the 4th year or the 5th year of the contract, I re-upped it for another 5, make it 5 years. The competition never got a foothold because of it, and they would never get able to find out when our contracts expired. Now, I couldn't do all of them at once. I did a third, and third. So none of the contracts would ever expire except a third of them, but I would never let them expire. I'd continue to renegotiate them. So to make a long story short, he goes, well, let's see. I said, I'm thinking 3 to 5 years. I said, we'll do $1 million for every 3 years. And I'm writing this on a cocktail napkin. I'm just passing it. We're passing it back and forth. He comes back and he goes, $3 million per year. No, $1.5 million a year over 3 years. I said, oh, okay. I pass another one back, this, that, and the other. I said, we'll do $1 million a year for 5 years. And he goes, well, $1.5 million for 5, we'll make it 5 years. Go on, we're exchanging these things. Not conversation, we're just kind of smiling at the same time, enjoying the wine, by the way, it was great. And he gets back to me and he says, what do you think about a 10-year deal? And I'm going, well, that's intriguing. I mean, I didn't pause, I just said, well, that's intriguing. He goes, yeah, he said, and I don't know whether you ever meet agents, they all have egos, folks. Egos as big as the sun sphere, I mean, literally. So he goes, I said, well, what are you thinking? I said, well, I'm thinking, well, I can probably do 5 years, 10 years. Now, I had over $1 million approval I could do on the spot from an officer standpoint with the company. I was going to have to get this deal approved no matter what it was to the board, no questions about it. So we came out and I said, well, we can't afford him now, but I know we will be able to afford him. So we literally struck a deal using a bell curve. Started out $1 million a year, $1.5 million, $2 million, $2.5 million at the top of the year. Now, keep in mind, you're going to do this contract for 10 years. Is he going to play for 10 years? What if he gets arrested and trialed for some deviant behavior? So you had to put all this in the contract and whatnot. If he's charged with a misdemeanor, nope, can't be charged. It's got to be a felony. And oh, by the way, it's conviction, not. So we threw that out, through the litany of the whole thing. Long story short, we did a 10-year deal. It averaged $1.4 million a year, $14 million for the entire 10 years. David Falk went out within 90 days of that contract. Us signing it, he went out and signed 10 other companies. They paid $5 million a year over 10 years. 10 companies, in 90 days, he had generated $500 million for Michael Jordan. Michael didn't need to play basketball. And those contracts didn't end unless Michael died. Knock on wood. So it was quite an opportunity. And again, you can't coach somebody this. I didn't want anything from Michael. I could say whatever was on my mind or what I needed to say. He'd show up at a commercial shoot, and he had that summer growth on his chin. Here, Michael, here's a Bic razor, here's foam. You got to shave that off. So, and he was exceptional to work with. Later became the CEO of Oakley. This is one of my favorite. This appeared on the front page of the Orange County Register. It was quite an experience. I was on their board for a couple years, and it's like seeing sausage made, the inside, but you don't really know what's in the inside till you get there. It was less than a year, and I had turned the company around. I got to know some of the people at Sunglass Hut. They were ready to pull the products out of their 1,200 stores. The CEO, they had never been down even to visit a CEO in Miami from Orange County. Just simple stuff. Common sense is not common to a lot of people, folks. So it was quite an experience. It's a great product. They didn't even have project engineers. So it was a matter of getting into this. They had private rooms that literally were, you can't talk in here. We're on the mic. The guy was paranoid. That's all I'm saying. And this is Bob and I today at a bourbon place in Lexington, Kentucky. So that's it, folks. If you have some questions, I'm happy to.
When did you come to Tennessee, and what was that for?
I was on the plane with Stan Huntsman, who was the track coach at Tennessee, coming back from Munich on the plane. And he said, have you ever thought about graduate school? I said, well, yeah, it's an option. And I was still in the Army. I said, well, I got to go back to California, get out of the Army. I got drafted. I was going to Vietnam. So all this stuff going on, and still divine guidance intervention, folks. I've never been vocal about my religious beliefs. Raised Catholic. One of my oldest brothers, Mike, you saw in there, was abused by the priests. I've never gone back after about 3 years ago. I won't share the stories.
Over that 72?
Yeah. But my point being, it was 72 I came back, but Stan was the first coach when I was in college, my senior year, who was the coach of the international team that I made. And based on that relationship, he offered me a scholarship, and he had a postgraduate scholarship, a grad assistant. And again, I had someone I'd never heard of before, Bob Woodruff, call me on the phone, and I still don't remember what he said to this day. You're calling to Tennessee? I said, yes, sir, I am. But I learned a lot from the guy. He was phenomenal, great thing. So I came here in 73.
Skinner was here when you got it, right?
Sorry again?
Skinner.
No, he wasn't. He was already out of here. He had finished competing. I don't think he competed after the Munich games. But now I was still competed up through the 80 games, and we weren't going. I was still living here. Finished my graduate degree. Stan ended up hiring somebody else for an assistant coach, and I knew my coaching career was over here, or I had to move somewhere else if I wanted to coach. I was in charge of recruiting, academics. I loved it. It was easy to recruit for Tennessee. You get a kid on campus here in March when it's 85 degrees here, and they're coming from Michigan or Pennsylvania. Where do I sign? So it was great, but the World's Fair was there, and then I moved away after the World's Fair, and I came back. It's hard to believe, 20 years now. I've been your neighbor that long. Yours too. So that's been the basics of it. I thought I'd be only here a short period of time. Had a couple interviews for a couple NFL teams. President of the Miami Dolphins, Huizenga, had a plan, and we just about inked it until the running back, Williams, went off on a tangent to smoke some weed in Asia somewhere, and he goes, you know what, I don't need this. My wife's in bad health. He sold the team. So And then Falcons were an opportunity as well. But and I just consulted out of here and taught in the graduate school in the sports management program at UT. So it's been a great relationship, great opportunity. And Knoxville is great. Anybody else? Yes.
Yeah. Bill, you were ahead of your time, but what I like most is you keep giving back. When you mentioned sports management, Bill has led our program and making a huge difference.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah.
So thank you.
Well, I've had the opportunity to be out there doing it, and a lot of the professors aren't as voiced in it or as familiar with it. So, and the students keep you sharp. So it's an opportunity to share with them the opportunities that are out there. So, anybody else? Any books that I saw today, all of it goes to the East Tennessee Historical Society. So don't be bashful. Buy a few. Thank you for showing up.